She didn't leave because she stopped loving him. She left because loving him was slowly teaching her how to disappear. The betrayal did not arrive like a storm. It came softly, almost politely, disguised as normal days and ordinary excuses. At first, she ignored it, the way lovers often do when they are afraid of what truth might cost them. She told herself love required understanding, that distance was temporary, that silence did not always mean absence. But betrayal has a way of repeating itself until it can no longer be mistaken for coincidence. He stopped noticing the small things. The way she waited for his calls. The way she smiled just to hide how much she needed reassurance. Conversations became shorter, affection became rare, and promises became fragile words spoken only to delay confrontation. He was there, yet never fully present, and that absence hurt more than any goodbye could have. She remained loyal in a relationship that was slowly forgetting her. While her heart stayed committed, his attention wandered elsewhere, not always toward another person, but toward a life where she was no longer essential. That realization cut deeper than jealousy. It made her feel replaceable, invisible, like love was something she was giving alone. Every betrayal was quiet, no public shame, no dramatic confession, just nights spent staring at the ceiling, wondering why love felt heavier instead of lighter. She questioned herself constantly, asking if she was asking for too much, expecting too much, loving too deeply. She learned how to forgive without being asked, how to adjust without being valued, how to wait without being chosen. The most painful part was how normal it all looked from the outside. Friends saw a relationship that still existed. Messages were still exchanged, smiles were still shared, but inside, her heart was learning how to ache silently. She carried disappointment gently, afraid that expressing it would push him further away. Betrayal taught her patience, but it also taught her loneliness. She was loving someone who no longer protected her heart. Each broken promise added another invisible scar, another moment where she felt her worth slipping through unanswered calls and postponed plans. Love, once warm and reassuring, began to feel cold and conditional. She stayed because she believed history mattered. Because she remembered who he used to be. Because hope whispered that things could return to the way they once felt. But with every passing day, the quiet betrayal grew louder in her chest, turning love into endurance, trust into doubt, and affection into something she had to beg herself to keep believing in. The breaking point was not a single moment of pain, but a slow accumulation of everything she had been carrying alone. It was the weight of unanswered questions, of emotions she kept swallowing to keep the peace. She had learned how to stay calm while her heart was screaming, how to smile while feeling unseen, how to convince herself that endurance was the same as love. But even the strongest hearts have a limit. One evening, in the quiet of her own thoughts, she realized she was no longer waiting for love, she was waiting for relief. Relief from uncertainty. Relief from hoping. Relief from the constant effort of holding something together that was already falling apart. That realization frightened her more than the betrayal itself. She thought of all the times she had chosen him over herself. The opportunities she postponed. The dreams she reshaped to fit into his world. The apologies she offered even when she was the one hurting. Love had slowly become a place where she was always adjusting, always understanding, always forgiving, while her own needs remained unanswered. The breaking point arrived when she noticed how tired she had become. Not physically, but emotionally. The kind of exhaustion that sleep cannot fix. She no longer felt excited to share her day, no longer felt safe expressing disappointment, no longer felt certain of her place in his life. Her silence was no longer patience, it was survival. For the first time, she allowed herself to ask a dangerous question. What if love was not supposed to hurt this much? What if staying was costing her more than leaving ever could? That question changed everything. It stripped away her excuses and forced her to see the truth she had been avoiding. Choosing herself felt selfish at first. She was afraid of being judged, of being misunderstood, of being alone. But beneath that fear was a quiet strength she had forgotten she possessed. A voice reminding her that love should not require self-erasure. The breaking point was not anger. It was clarity. A calm, painful understanding that she could no longer grow in a place where she was constantly shrinking. Walking away did not mean she stopped loving him. It meant she finally stopped abandoning herself. Leaving her home felt unreal, like stepping out of a life she once believed would last forever. The airport lights were too bright, the goodbye too quiet, and her heart too heavy with memories she could not pack away. She carried more than a suitcase with her. She carried heartbreak, fear, and a fragile hope that distance might give her the clarity she couldn't find before. Starting over in a foreign land meant facing the unknown alone, without the comfort of familiar faces or shared history. In the beginning, everything felt overwhelming. The streets spoke a language she struggled to understand, and the silence of her new apartment echoed louder than her thoughts. She missed the version of herself who once felt certain about love, about belonging, about the future. Yet, in that loneliness, something unexpected happened. She began to listen to herself again. Work became her refuge. Each task, each small achievement reminded her that she was capable of more than she had been led to believe. She poured her energy into rebuilding her career, not to prove anything to anyone else, but to remind herself of her own worth. Long hours turned into confidence, and challenges slowly replaced doubt. For the first time in years, her efforts were met with recognition rather than indifference. As weeks turned into months, she noticed changes within herself. She no longer measured her days by someone else's attention. Her decisions were her own. She learned how to enjoy her own company, how to walk through unfamiliar streets without fear, how to trust her instincts again. Independence didn't arrive suddenly. It grew quietly, shaped by every choice she made for herself. The new land gave her permission to be someone different. Not broken, not abandoned, but evolving. She met people who knew nothing about her past, who saw her only as she was in the present moment. That freedom allowed her to breathe without explaining her scars. Her laughter returned, hesitant at first, then more natural with time. In rebuilding her life, she discovered that healing was not about forgetting love, but about redefining it. She was no longer the woman who waited to be chosen. She was the woman choosing herself, shaping a future rooted in strength, self-respect, and quiet resilience as she stepped further into the life she was creating on her own terms. Independence did not feel empowering at first. It felt empty. It felt like waking up to a life where no one was waiting for her stories or asking how her day had been. She had mistaken companionship for safety, and now that it was gone, the silence felt heavy. But within that silence, healing slowly began to take shape, not as a sudden transformation, but as a series of quiet realizations. She started to understand how much of herself she had given away in the name of love. Her opinions softened, her desires postponed, her boundaries blurred. Independence forced her to face the parts of herself she had ignored, the dreams she had put aside, the needs she had silenced. Without anyone else to lean on, she learned how to stand firmly on her own. There were days when loneliness returned unexpectedly. Familiar songs, familiar places, familiar memories tested her resolve. Yet instead of running back to what once hurt her, she learned how to sit with those emotions. She learned that healing was not about avoiding pain, but about allowing it to pass without letting it define her. Slowly, she began to trust herself again. She trusted her instincts when making decisions, her strength when facing challenges, her heart when setting boundaries. Independence taught her that love should not require constant sacrifice of self. It showed her that self-respect is not selfish, but necessary. She invested time in herself in ways she never had before. She learned new skills, explored new interests, and celebrated achievements without waiting for someone else's approval. Each small victory rebuilt her confidence. Each choice made for her own happiness reinforced her sense of identity. As she healed, her understanding of love transformed. Love was no longer about endurance or compromise at any cost. It became about balance, mutual effort, and emotional safety. She realized that before she could welcome love from someone else, she had to create a safe place within herself. Independence became her teacher. It showed her that she could survive heartbreak, uncertainty, and change. It proved that her happiness was not dependent on being chosen by someone else. She was learning to love her own company, to enjoy her own growth, to feel complete without needing validation. In healing through independence, she was not closing her heart. She was strengthening it, preparing it for a future where love would be an addition to her life rather than the foundation of her worth. Love did not return to her life with fireworks or dramatic promises. It arrived quietly, almost carefully, as if it understood the history her heart carried. There was no rush, no pressure to explain her past, no demand for perfection. This love did not ask her to prove her worth or question her boundaries. It simply showed up, steady and sincere. At first, she was cautious. She had learned how fragile trust could be, how easily words could lose meaning. She kept her guard up, watching for signs she once ignored. But this love was different. It listened without interrupting, stayed without disappearing, and responded with consistency instead of excuses. Slowly, she allowed herself to believe that not all love was meant to hurt. What surprised her most was how safe she felt. There was comfort in honesty, freedom in being fully herself, and peace in knowing she did not have to compete for attention. This love didn't confuse her or leave her guessing. It felt like being understood without having to explain every emotion. She noticed how her laughter came easier, how her shoulders felt lighter, how her heart no longer raced with anxiety. Arguments did not feel like battles, and silence did not feel threatening. Differences were handled with respect, and affection was given without conditions. This love did not try to change her, it embraced the woman she had become. She realized she was no longer loving from a place of fear. She was not afraid of being abandoned or replaced. Her past had taught her to value presence, and this love offered exactly that. It was not perfect, but it was real. It was built on effort, understanding, and mutual care. For the first time, love felt equal. She was not giving more than she received, nor was she shrinking herself to be accepted. She could dream freely, speak openly, and grow without resistance. This love supported her independence instead of threatening it. She understood then that timing matters in love. This love could not have arrived earlier, before she healed, before she learned her worth, before she learned how to walk away from what did not serve her. It arrived when she was ready to receive it without losing herself. Love that arrived gently did not erase her past. It honored it by being patient, by being kind, by being consistent. It became a reminder that after betrayal and rebuilding, the heart is still capable of choosing love again, this time without pain, without doubt, and without fear.